If you're watching this program today, then something that was supposed to happen 2 days from now didn't. Next on the Atheist Viewpoint. Hello and welcome to the Atheist Viewpoint. I'm your co-host, Ron Barrier.
And I'm Dennis Horvitz.
And today, it's the end of the world as we know it. Now, for most of you who watch the Atheist Viewpoint, and for many people who don't, everyone knew last May 21st, Harold Camping, a civil engineer turned self-certified biblical theological expert, predicted for the second time that the world was going to end, and of course it didn't, much to the consternation, I guess, to these doomsday cults and sects that happen to permeate the American landscape.
And apologists, right?
Yeah, and apologists too. Of course, it didn't happen, and in this case on May 21st, of course, his scenario didn't play out, and as we discussed earlier, on how many people actually suffered,
right,
because they fell into the trap of this guy's Harold Camping's crazy thoughts.
Well, some people sold their homes and gave up possessions and things like that.
Things like that. And we have the most famous guy on Staten Island. His name was Robert Fitzpatrick, who spent $140,000 of his own money
warning people,
taking signs out on the MTA and everything. Of course, he was also promoting a book, which we found out later. And
is that true? I didn't know that.
Yes. He was promoting a book, and on that day, May 21st, he went to Times Square and surrounded by the media and people. And of course, when nothing happened, when no one was killed, apparently he was very disappointed that his God didn't destroy multitudes, which is pretty sick.
Wait a minute. Let me ask you something. He was promoting a book. If he really believed the world was coming to an end, why would he be promoting a book? What good would that
do? For the same reason that Harold Camping kept accepting donations right up to the last day. In other words, they don't buy it, and if it doesn't happen, they're going to make out on it anyway.
Yeah.
But that's Christianity, and
I think it's
Christianity is always looking to make out on something.
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of a I don't know what you call it. Well, this is what it's called compartmentalizing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these people who believe this very weird stuff, or at least highly implausible stuff, in other facets of their lives, are completely rational, make intelligent decisions about a lot of things. But when it comes to something like this, well, it's like I've said before, and other people have said before, it's like when you walk into a house of worship, you basically hang your brains up at the door, and you go, and it's about emotion, So I think that's why a lot of the dichotomies and the inconsistencies in Scripture are completely glossed over, because it's not about, checking what's been said,
There was a line in a film. I believe the film was called Case 39, and it was with the actress Renee Zellweger and a few others. And she was a social worker who became involved with a family the son appeared to be possessed. All right, and she brought in a detective to help her investigate. And there was a line where she encounters the detective when he comes out of church on a Sunday morning. And she implores to him to really look into this because it may be possession, okay? He's looking at her like she has 3 heads. And her line to him, which I've just always remembered as being just a very profound line, was, "Oh, I see. You believe it in there, but out here it's bullshit."
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that illustrates exactly what you said.
Yeah. People compartmentalize.
Yeah, a forensics specialist who goes to church will not look for supernatural hints
Right.
when he's investigating a case.
Right. Right.
That's out of the question.
Because he or she would be fired immediately.
Yes.
If they ever try to present that in a court of law or to their own superiors. You know?
Right. But for
Right.
14 and 14.3% of their time on Earth, on that 7th day, they go in there and actually act like they believe it.
Right.
But in the real world, it's garbage.
Right. A surgeon saved someone's life and thanks God, but wouldn't dream of stepping into an operating room without years of training.
Oh yeah,
You know. And no one would let anyone in the operating room without years.
Well, that's another thing that Christianity does too. I think and we're gonna have a show coming up where President of American Atheists debates Dinesh D'Souza over whether Christianity is good for America. We'll take it from there of whether it's good or bad. But to me, one of the things that religion does is it constantly undermines human achievement by giving credit to a non-human entity for the human success or the achievement. And I don't know. To me, that just, you're insulting the power of the human mind, and you're insulting the power of human communication. All right, people getting together to do real things, like those who put the rover and the Spirit on Mars, those who sent a new probe out to Mercury. I mean, to me, those are monumental. That's human achievement.
Yeah, that inspires genuine awe.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it's given such short shrift. We spend more time on this fictional personality, Kardashian. Is that the name?
No, it's a real person.
Well, no, a real person, but a fictional personality. This person doesn't do anything.
The cult of celebrity,
yes.
Cult of personality.
More people know about that than know about any of these other great human achievements that we've done.
Right.
And it's so sad. But so anyway, so Harold Camping was wrong on May 21st. Subsequently, he said he made a mistake, and it was moved to October 21st. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is between May 21st and October 21st is Harold Camping was unfortunately hit with a stroke. Now, whether his God did it to him to shut him up, or like with other people, is just an issue of being aged and the body doesn't function the way it once did. Yeah. All right. But Mr. Fitzpatrick of Staten Island continues. He's in the papers again at the last few days, and he says he'll spend a new updated end of days, excuse me, in seclusion. His reason is
good choice.
I would think being humiliated once.
Not a bad choice.
But it had nothing to do with humiliation. He says here, after prayer and careful consideration, I've decided I won't be speaking to the press any longer. And this is him speaking to the press.
Right.
All right. As he carried groceries in his home. He goes, I won't be in Times Square, I'll be here. So he's already letting the press know where he's going to be by not speaking to them, by speaking to them. He says, I love the way the paper put it here, the Daily News, that he left Midtown deflated on May 21st and befuddled when the earth didn't explode in a giant earthquake as he and family radio evangelist Harold Camping had predicted. He later said, May 21st, now, this is a very convincing argument, Dennis. I mean, please. That May 21st was an invisible judgment day.
Yeah. And so October 12th, October 21st of 2011, well, that's kind of like a follow-up. Is that the idea?
I guess this is the follow-up. That 5 months of destruction and resurrection will compress into one brimstone bonanza. As I love the way to read. I wonder, if any one of these people believe in Christianity, the Bible, and Revelation, the columnists.
Brimstone Bonanza. That's like a great name for a racehorse.
Or a band.
Or a band.
Yeah, Brimstone Bonanza.
Let's do it. Let's form a band. I'll play guitar. You play bass.
The Brimstone
We'll get a drummer.
Bonanza.
The Brimstone Bonanza.
All right. Well, he even took aim at his scoffers, and he put an essay online on October 8th. he claimed that the world is being set up for the enormous shock they will experience on October 21st. Thankfully, the Earth's destruction will be over in only a couple of minutes. There should be no suffering whatsoever for the unsaved. They will simply vanish into nothingness. Now, once again, I think it is sick.
You know, good Scotch will do that.
Yeah. I think it is disturbing, and I think you should be embarrassed for believing in a theology in which those who do not believe like you will vanish into nothingness. And you're going to get this big payoff.
It's wishful thinking.
And God is going to give you this tremendous barbecue and beer in heaven forever, and life is going to be one big tailgating party for the Christians.
Yeah, it's wishful thinking. I mean, you remember that old Twilight Zone show where the little kid Anthony wishes people into the cornfield?
Oh yeah,
that's what they're doing. They're wishing us into the cornfield.
Now he says that the non-believers will vanish into nothingness. I thought the rapture was that the believers would vanish.
Well, I guess when it's pure fantasy.
Well, we're all vanishing, and they're going one way, and we're going the other.
Yeah, something. See, when it's fantasy, you can make up stuff, and it doesn't matter.
How does one morally justify feeling joy or legitimacy at the destruction and suffering of others?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's certainly.
I would like Mr. Fitzpatrick to come on the air and explain to me why he enjoys believing that others will suffer at the hands of his God.
Right. Well,
what's the difference between him and an Islamist extremist, other than his position as one of rhetorical passivity?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I mean, to me, it's just stating the obvious that. People who believe differently are a threat to their faith, and I feel that we deserve to be punished for it. And they're just basically verbalizing their own inner, nightmare.
Do you think that monotheism can survive without having an enemy? Now, I know that, and I ask you, the people out there, think about it. Could monotheism survive if it didn't have a perceived enemy? Because their enemies always shift as generations, as time, as history moves on, the enemies shift. Now, non-believers are always the enemy.
Right. I'm just trying to think. I'm just trying to think why monotheism as opposed to polytheism.
It seems to me that polytheism doesn't seem to worry about competition or enemies so much.
Because I guess the belief in many gods is kind of already built into the system, into the belief system. So consequently, somebody else having another god is not necessarily a threat.
Well, there were really no religious conflicts or religious wars, at least in Western society, in Rome, before monotheism. Now, that's not to say that in other cultures, say some of the more indigenous cultures, that they may have had conflicts rooted in their spiritual beliefs.
Right.
All right. I'm not saying that didn't happen. But it seems that there was more homogenization in Europe and under the Roman Empire prior to absolute monotheism.
Yeah, I don't think the Romans' oppression of the people that dominated was just that. It was oppression, and it was not pretty. But I don't think the Romans particularly objected to opposing beliefs unless that belief somehow conflicted with their administration of their system.
Took on a political tone.
Yeah. I mean, it just they oppressed the Jews, for instance, and they oppressed the Christians, but.
Well, both of them had other kings that they were talking about.
Right.
And that adds a political tone and a political texture to the argument.
Right. But if they had just laid down and simply accepted Roman rule and did what they were told, there was nothing about them being Jewish or Christian that would necessarily have bothered the Romans. It's because they stood up and oppressed Rome. That's why they were.
I have a great book at home called Pagans and Christians by Robin. Oh, I think it's Robin Cook. I'll correct myself on another show. It's a very thick 8,000 page history of paganism and Christianity from the 1st through the 3rd centuries. And essentially, he paints a picture that the polytheists, the pagans and all them, they all recognized each other's gods, and they said it was fine. They didn't fight over them. If one group from one town that worshipped one god went to another town that worshipped another god, they all joined in the celebrations.
Well, in fact,
they love celebrations.
In fact, prior to the Israelite kingdom, even the Israelites, when they were allegedly wandering, they were henotheistic as opposed to strictly monotheistic. Henotheistic means there's a main godhead, but they still acknowledge the existence of other gods, and it was not uncommon just to pay tribute to a local god, for instance, which wasn't considered an insult to Yahweh, at the time.
That's interesting.
But it's funny because in the book of Revelation, John the Apostle, of course, rails against these various cities, Corinth, the Ephesians, because they diverted from what he considered to be party line.
Corinth, he didn't like their leather?
Okay. Corinthian leather. Well, it was too kinky. But the thing is, for instance, with the letter to the Ephesians, well, Ephesus was a city in what is now, I guess, southwestern Turkey, and it was a main center. And basically, the Christians and the pagans and got along. See, one reason for it was because everybody was making money. It was like, and it was the fact that everybody got along. That's the Christians and the Jews and the pagans all got along.
It's funny. Economy does help people get together and get along.
And the fact that they were all getting along, the Christians were getting along with everybody else. That's what bothered John the Apostle. I mean, that's why he was sending those letters, because it was part. He had his view of what Christianity should be, and anybody that
thought otherwise,
or diverted from that was of course wrong. So he's couched in very polite terms that they were. In some cases, he was polite. In other cases, he wasn't. John the Apostle definitely needed to be on medication, but actually he wasn't as whacked out as some of the people who interpreted what he wrote later on. Anyway, but I just wanted to mention that it's true that, here you had a case of polytheists, Christians and Jews in a situation. Everybody was making money, or most people were making money, and they were all getting along, and that wasn't acceptable, to a monotheist.
All right, so as we diverted there, though, but as you know, October, if you're watching this show, right. October 21st came and went, and again, nothing happened, and again, we should, even when I read articles, people say, well, I'm not here to say that it will or it won't. Right. I mean, come on, stop even giving them a sliver of light. This is nonsense.
Well, it is entertainment, though.
It's entertainment, but it is nonsense. It's as much nonsense as saying that you can, of course, pick up a rock in the middle of the desert and squeeze water out of it.
Look, can I just say one thing?
Right.
If the end of the world has come and gone, never mind.
Oh, that's right. So we won't have to worry about it.
You won't have to worry. Never mind what we say.
So much. So as far as Mr. Fitzpatrick, I really do feel sorry for him. This is a very tortured individual.
And there are real people who mean well, who believe this stuff, and that's kind of really sad.
It is sad.
It's sad and it's frightening too at the same time.
You know, they think that they're feeling sorry for us, but it's quite the other way around.
Yeah.
Today I had an interesting situation. Now that we're talking about, we wind up talking about morality and supernaturalism and religion. There is a large non-denominational group on Staten Island called the International Christian Center. And they recently had a big building put up on Richmond Avenue. They have all this property and everything. So today I get this card in the mail from them, and it's the International Christian Center, their New Dorp campus. Nothing is too hard for God, it says here. Okay? No illness, no loneliness, no fear, no addiction, no financial need or forgiveness is too hard for God. And the International Christian Center is sponsored by the Assemblies of God, which is, again, one of these doomsday cult groups. So I turn it around about their New Dorp campus, and I'm interested. Well, it turns out that you're invited to join the International Christian Center at New Dorp High School, which is a public city high school. And they have a thing now Sundays at 11 a.m. And it says here, it's a ministry to children and youth. And they have a thing here, they go, we love kids. You know, whenever religious groups say we love kids, I have to look at them with a skeptical eye, because there are some religious groups that love kids so much
but we don't know that.
You know, we know the story on this. So they say they're family friendly, kids church, nursery, youth group, special needs. Now, why am I bringing this up? This is the Reverend Chris Dito. He's the New Dorp campus pastor right there. The reason I'm bringing this up is because they put these in our mailboxes, which is against federal law.
Is that true?
That is true. You are not allowed to put anything in a mailbox that does not have postage.
Wow.
All right? This does not have postage. Has a little app on the front in the lower corner, a little app here, I don't know what, but of course I'm not going to put any phone over that because I don't want them knowing anything. Because I don't, by the way, I'll tell you right now, I don't trust these things. Okay, they have been proven already that once you hook up with these apps, they send information from your phone or whatever back to the origin.
So I have going to express my ignorance. So that's an app down
there?
Yes. And how does that operate?
Supposedly, that's a scanning code, and you tell you, if you have a smartphone, you can scan this.
Okay. That's
and then this hooks you up to a website and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't do that stuff.
That makes me a little nervous.
So while nothing seems to be too hard for God, apparently it's very hard for God's followers to obey the law. So I called them up. All right? And I spoke to a gentleman, and I said, you know, not for nothing, but you're not supposed to be putting this in private residential mailboxes.
Right.
So it was a female who answered. She got off the phone. I waited a minute. A male came on, and he expressed his apology. I wasn't going to take him much further.
Right.
Okay. But he blames the teenagers. He goes, you know, these teenagers, they don't listen. I said, what do you mean the teenagers? Don't you tell them, like, not to put it in the post office because it's against federal law? He says, well, I'm not sure if we really covered that. Well, then it's not the teenagers.
Right.
Stop blaming the teenagers. You know?
Right.
It's you.
Right.
It's you and it's the adults. You don't tell them properly, they don't do the proper thing.
Right. Let me go out on a limb here.
Go ahead.
They didn't cover it. That's my guess. I don't think they cover it. I don't think they bothered to tell anybody.
Well, you know what? This is part of a pattern that I've always believed, and this is one of the reasons why I dropped Christianity as a moral framework. They push themselves as far as they can until they're told they can't do it.
Yeah. Well,
in other words, they can't take it upon themselves to look and see, oh, is this legal? Is this not? You know, what are our options? What are our limits? What is no? Oh, well, you know, if the Constitution doesn't say it, well, then I can do it until you tell me that I can't.
Right.
And that seems to be an attitude that I find prevalent. There's no law against it. You know, but you know, it's like free speech. You have Fred Phelps. You have, you know, his vicious group, and you have some of these other Christian groups that are quite vicious, and they say they're exercising free speech. But to me, free speech comes with responsibility. There's a difference between free speech and abusive speech.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them.
Yeah, but you know, it's not. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
You know, there's a certain responsibility, you know, to try and educate rather than agitate. Let's put it this way. And they don't take advantage of that. Right. You know.
Right. In any case, we're running out of time, but bottom line, someone is either going to be around to see the show or they're not.
Yeah, that's what I figured. And either we're going to get together again in 2 weeks and do some shows, or we're not.
Or we're not. You know, there won't be any world. Well,
I mean, I'll tell you right now, for instance, that you know, tonight I'm going to go home and watch the first game of the World Series, regardless.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Oh, and one other thing, as we go on 2 minutes, and too bad that this is after the point, but New York City is sponsoring the New York City Doomsday Festival.
Oh, wonderful!
October 21st, 22nd, and 23rd.
Oh, I'm going to go.
And they're going to have a collection of doomsday and apocalyptic films.
Where it's going to be held all over the city?
Yeah. If you look at NYC Doomsday Fest, and one of the films that I wanted to mention was a very interesting end of days film called Last Night. 2 words, a Canadian film about the Earth ending in 6 hours, and how 6 different groups of people or individuals dealt with the final 6 hours of each of their individual lives.
Yeah, I saw that movie. It's very good.
It's a very good film. There's no explosions. There are no Bible preachers. It's not a hysterical film, but a really good philosophical exercise on how people will deal with unavoidable inevitability.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So we're down to our final minute. On behalf of Dennis Horvitz and myself, we'd like to thank you for joining us here on the Atheist Viewpoint. Please go to American Atheist website, www.atheists.org. And if you saw David Silverman with us on the last show, we have many things coming up. A new billboard campaign. My favorite, by the way, is 2,000 Years of Any Day Now. I love that billboard.
That's beautiful.
That's a beautiful billboard. Yep. We have the Regional Atheist Meet in Florida. We have the March for Reason in Washington, D.C., and the American Atheist Convention coming up in March 2012, regardless of what Harold Camping or Robert Fitzpatrick have to say. So, on behalf of us, Dennis, myself, and everybody here at American Atheist, we say good night.
Bye-bye.